Welcome back to Transcriber from Reddit. Today's topic comes from the subreddit exLutheran, posted by user FakeyFake12. The post is a text post titled Call Process, with a gray tag discussion. Because of the content of this post, this will be cross-posted to Games Denominations Play. The post reads as follows. Hello. I currently go to an LCMS church, although I would call myself an aspiring exLutheran. I am extremely fed up with the LCMS, and I've been trying to get my spouse to go to a different denomination or even gasp ELCA. So far, I haven't gotten him to even visit anywhere else, unfortunately. We're at a bit of an impasse. Our old pastor moved, and our church is in the process of calling a new one. At a recent meeting, we had several candidates to talk about. The call committee said there were several they didn't recommend because they didn't want women voting in church and didn't want women serving on the board in any capacity. As a very, very traditional church, I was honestly surprised the call committee was against banning women to vote, but I'm very thankful they are. I have grown up in LCMS and attend several churches, and now I'm in my 30s. This is the first I've heard of LCMS pastors/churches denying voting and board positions to women. Unsurprisingly, all of the candidates came from the Fort Wayne Seminary, but they were all graduates, ordained, and working in churches. Is this a new push from the synod or seminary to take the rights of women? In the past, this was scoffed at as only something WELS churches did. I'm getting more and more disheartened by the LCMS, and this just reaffirms that I can't in good conscience continue to go to an LCMS church or take my children there. Also, there was only one candidate that would allow girls to acolyte. I grew up in a church that only allowed boys to acolyte, but I have zero issues or understanding why someone would have issues with girls acolyting. And this is the reason I picked this as a crossover to Games Denominations Play. Because, as the author of the post pointed out, in their 30 years experience in the LCMS, women were allowed to do these things. However, with the recent graduates from the seminary, these graduates are saying, in good conscience and with their full chest, no, we're going to go against what the overall LCMS Synod has decreed that women can do in this denomination. And I wonder if it has to do with these informal discussions, if there is something that is going on that is being taught at the seminary to these new seminarians, to these graduating seminarians, that's saying that there's going to be a quiet rollback of women's rights in the LCMS church. Now, I want to emphasize, this is all speculation on my part. Reviewing the website here and in the Internet Archive, the LCMS seems to be consistent in not allowing women to be ministers, but allowing them to serve elsewhere in the church. However, I do not see anything that the LCMS has put out strictly in regards to women voting. The closest I got was under this question regarding the main differences between LCMS and WELS. And here they say that LCMS has concluded that Scripture does not oppose women's suffrage. Knowing that their website says this, however, and that there is not a stronger statement that enforces women's ability to vote at LCMS churches, does make me concerned for OP here. And I don't see that I'm alone in my concerns. In the comment thread for this Reddit post, we see other users echo the same concerns, such as Run Rosemary, who wrote, "The president of the LCMS is also pro-white supremacy. Is that concerning to you? That seems to be a bigger issue than the rise in misogyny in LCMS. Matthew Harrison has taken a pro-MAGA stance. He issued a letter congratulating Doge. He has not spoken out against the district in Missouri allowing a Christian nationalist group to use a LCMS space. A LCMS pastor was part of the group trying to overturn the 2020 elections, ... Should I go on? Open your eyes and your heart, friend. Women being told to shut up by LCMS is the tip of the iceberg." I agree with this. especially if they know that pastors are coming out of seminary. New pastors, young faces, young vicars, soon-to-be pastors, they're coming out of seminary with these ideas that women should not vote, even though the LCMS has established that and has practiced that for years. Especially when it comes down to when they go to churches. Board members usually end up agreeing with the pastors in some way, and that could mean that women in the LCMS will find themselves disenfranchised. And the LCMS committee, the people who run the LCMS, could very well throw up their hands and say, individual churches run themselves. Your vote is not our problem. This is a huge concern. Another user, Suzume234, wrote, "From reading on here, it sounds like Missouri Synod is definitely becoming more right-wing. I grew up Wells. I didn't know that some churches in Missouri Synod allowed women to vote or serve in the church. I hope your wife can get out. It's hard being of two different sects when one is so close-minded." Definitely agree. Continuing on to the next user, Punxsutawney Phil 606, who wrote, "Former LCMS church worker here with all my family still LCMS church workers. Those viewpoints have always been prevalent in the LCMS, but that wing, parentheses, the Fort Wayne wing to generalize, in parentheses, has become more widespread. The church body is shrinking, with the less conservative people leaving and the ultra-conservatives digging their heels in and gaining more power. That trend is happening within individual churches too." And then user Jolly-Lengthiness316 said in response, "Our pastors were from St. Louis, but the Fort Worth Wayne culture was beginning to make itself known about the time I left my LCMS congregation. There was no place for me, someone who examines and studies everything closely and has questions. Our senior pastor transferred. I found him condescending and was happy to see him go. But shortly after that, I had had enough and left. That was more than 2 years ago. Now they have guest pastors. They cannot get a pastor to accept a call, and the ones who show interest are much more conservative than the ones they've had before. My friends were not MAGA, though the MAGA crown grew much louder in 2020 during COVID. I never liked President Harrison and find it difficult to even hear him speak. I think he's a racist and definitely misogynist. I feel sorry for his wife. I think the LCMS may eventually roll back the use of all birth control. Many pastors already preach against its use. I am not sure what the future holds for the LCMS. I don't think it's a bright future, but who knows. I have no regrets about leaving, but I did grieve a bit. I was there for a long time and left friends. Do keep in touch with several, and they all have some issues with the denomination. My husband left before me. He said he no longer felt connected. He used to volunteer for everything. I found a new church, but he's really apathetic. I wish I had left years ago. Better late than never." Finally, featuring user foreign-jacket 1531's comment, "This is the voice of experience, so it's more anecdotal than conclusive. The results may vary, but ... In my experience, the young pastors coming out of the seminary, parentheses, Wells or LCMS, and parentheses, are often some of the most rigid about their petty doctrines because the brainwashing is so fresh and they haven't experienced the reality of ministry. It's the guys who had been out 10 to 15 years that start realizing that the hardliners that train them tend to have their heads up their asses, and it's okay for them to start to practice less conservatively. Some young'uns from the seminary never get that memo." Side note, I agree with all of their comments here. As you might be thinking, as OP here says in response, it's just weird because the LCMS website and some FAQs and a resolution says women are allowed to vote, so why are all these guys pushing against women voting? Why would the seminary teach things contrary to what the LCMS as a whole says? It's just baffling. Yeah, it is baffling. Why would they go against what the LCMS has established and practiced for decades? My personal take is that they see this as an opportunity to combine with other denominations to make up for the loss of membership. That, and also roll back their allowances towards women, their temporary misunderstanding, maybe, that women should have these rights. And I wonder if this is going to be a slow, soft rollback before the denomination makes a hardline stance of, actually, no, women can't vote in the denomination anymore. User Sergeant_Bell_Pepper responds with, it's because they're all falling into a right-wing ideology. My dad, who was a pastor, parentheses, and very conservative, end parentheses, even said in the 80s that anyone out of the Fort Wayne Seminary was even more super conservative than he was, parentheses. He went to St. Louis, end parentheses, and that was even 40 plus years ago. Please leave me your thoughts, your comments down in the comments section below. What do you think is happening in the LCMS? Do you think the LCMS and WELS and ELS will eventually join up again? And do you think that this means that the LCMS will roll back their view on women's suffrage? Especially, like other people have noted, the fact that they say on their website that they don't see an issue with women's suffrage. Do you think that they're going to roll that back? Let me know. Thank you for watching/listening, and I will see you in the next video.